vulnerability is what will be so important as creators. Now I'm going maybe to another subject of AI, but in a world where AI is so prominent, I think the answer is vulnerability. I think the answer is honesty, because that's something that AI doesn't have. Like, we as creators have to adapt a little bit, because everyone can write a newsletter. You can ask ChatGPT and it will write a newsletter. So I think you can only be human if you really show your vulnerable side.
Vulnerability and authentic storytelling is a powerful tool that connects us as humans together. By sharing his story with such raw honesty, Dayo creates content that is impactful and relatable. This was a beautiful conversation with someone I admire so much. I hope you enjoy.
And I really vibe with what you've been talking about. And it's very interesting, your style, how it's like, how do you explain it? It's something that I also make as well. Your style of video and storytelling it's authentic. It has a sense of like melancholy or sadness or humanity. Yeah. I don't know how to explain that. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Because I also have this.
Yeah, maybe it's melancholy, or I think you nailed it with those words. I think there is a sadness or slowness or something. Like, I really like giving people time to observe and feel and get emotions out of the images I show or something like. But I think there is a sadness in my work, and I realized now I want to do like YouTube videos with me talking. My sister told me, like, you have to look out that you don't be so sad all the time, or like that you have a weight on what you say or something, like the way I talk. Or so I think in my work it's obviously there, but I have to find a way to, now when I build my personal brand, to lift it up a little bit, I think. But it's interesting that you already observed that, I think. Yeah. What work of me did you see? I'm curious.
I watched a lot. Yes. I watched your YouTube channel. I watched your beginning video, and I really resonated with that one, and how you're talking about how you had always wanted to start, but like there was something that was holding you back.
Yeah.
And that was very interesting to me, because I also have a video that is very similar. I'll share it with you. Yeah, I took it off my YouTube. It's all on YouTube. But since starting my business, I took quite a few videos down, and then I'm just thinking about putting them back up again. But very, very similar stuff. Very similar stuff. I also watched your short film.
Yeah.
That you directed and produced about the passing of your mother, was it?
Yeah. Well, I think if you're talking about sadness, I think that is my work actually most of my work. Also, another short film, Sweet Alice, is also about grief, and it's quite melancholic, and but I can't go around it, you know. It's something so. If I make things as an artist, if I make things as art, you have to go very deep in yourself, and like, what do I really want to say, or what is it that I want to create? It's that when you ask that question, it's something like, it's almost something like life and death. It's a very important question to ask yourself. What do you want? What do you want to put your time in, and what lives inside of you? And if you ask yourself that question, sometimes it's not that happy, you know, but you can go around those feelings. So those films were really a way of me to grieve and to work with my emotions and to go deep inside myself, you know.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful, and I think it's powerful that making films can help you process all different types of emotions. And I really appreciate your style, and like I appreciate the melancholic nature of what you're talking about. Like it feels like honest, like brutally honest, and it's refreshing to me because I find that a lot of content online nowadays is so like, hey, what's up? How you doing? You know, but and to some people that is truly them, and which is a beautiful thing. And then to some other people, you know, we have these thoughts and ideas that we haven't completely processed or thought about, or maybe like we are using filmmaking as a way to process, like you said. And it just feels, it's a style that I personally vibe with. It's just refreshing, man. And I really appreciate it. So thank you very much for, your style, I guess you could say. It's
cool to hear that it's appreciated, because if you listen what I just said about how I think I need to be more happy when I'm talking on YouTube, that's like contradictory to what you're saying now. It's like, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should be myself, you know, like, because I struggle with that. Hey, what's up? The intros, the talking on YouTube, the explaining videos. I'm like, can I even do this? I don't know.
Yeah. Do you know Danny Gewertz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love his work.
It's a very similar style, right? I don't know if style is right. I think it's just an authentic. It feels very, very authentic. And I think that digital authenticity is something that we need a whole lot more of, you know, online nowadays.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So maybe perhaps, you know, you need to put in little pieces of, like going back to what your sister was saying. I don't know, man, because I know that for a certain group of people like myself, your honest, authentic style it resonates with very seriously, like with a section of people. So, yeah, I've also been trying to find my voice online, and I think it's a very long process. And I think I've had this voice in the back of my head for a very long time, is that I'm not going to find digital authenticity until I put out like a mass amount of work. And then after making a mass amount of work, eventually I'll find my voice. And I know that's what I should be doing, making like a lot of content online and just putting out my thoughts without like overthinking things and like letting go of like the voices in my head saying it needs to be perfect.
Yeah.
But I'm still struggling with that one, you know? So I think there is also a possibility where short form content can actually be authentic, which is something that, because I'm currently offering the service of making short form video content. And so like I'm diving deep into it, and a lot of the video tutorials on like how to edit short form, it's all like, you need to like, every 2 seconds, there needs to be a cut, and you need to like put these like transitions to like keep people's attentions. And it's just like, to some people like us, you know, like there is a style of like communicating our ideas, which is not like, hey, what's up? It's so, yeah, man, it's a cool thing. Hey, Dayo, could we go back a bit, and could you tell me about what is it about filmmaking that got you so interested in studying it? And
I started as an actor actually when I was a teenager, because my oldest sister, I have four sisters, but my oldest sister is a film director also in the Netherlands. And when she was studying, she needed a lot of children because she's making content for children. She needed me as her little brother to be an actor. And as she grew, I also grew as an actor. So we were like introduced to the film world together in a sense. And I went to bigger productions as an actor, like TV series. And because of that experience, I just fell in love with the way you can tell a story. And because when you're acting, 90% of the time, you're waiting. So I had a lot of time to observe like how things worked. So when I was 17, that interest grew to like, I can do that. And I just started with my own camera, making films with friends. And then, it just grew naturally for me. Also, I'm dyslexic, and I struggled with that a lot when I was a teenager. I felt really dumb in a sense, or that I was failing in every like language class or what. But I discovered that film was a language. And because I think in images, film felt so natural to me. And when I started to understand the complexity of film, but also how it works, it felt like, okay, I can create something now. And then I made my first short film. I worked 2 years on the short film. And eventually I won my first festival with this as like it was a very motivational prize, like best director without any education. So wow. I was like, okay, I will get that education now. But I was quite scared also to go this direction, because I grew up in a family of artists, and seeing my sister also struggle in this business, I was scared, and I did another study first, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to be a personal coach in fitness. But I had to quit, and eventually it felt very wrong not following my dream. So eventually I went on studying film.
Wow. So you always knew that telling stories is something that you should be doing. And then you started going down one path. What was the moment? Do you remember the moment where you decided to like stop pursuing one direction and follow your dreams?
Yeah, I was working. So I quit that study, and then I wanted to go to the film academy in Amsterdam. Well, it was like a first dream. Like maybe I can do this. But I went to Amsterdam and started working there in a coffee shop, in a real coffee shop, like real coffee. And well, yeah, and to make a long story short, I didn't get accepted, and it was hard to survive in Amsterdam with I didn't make so much money. But I went back to Belgium and started working in a fabric, what is the name? What do you call a fabriek? Like a...
What do you mean fabric? Warehouse?
Yeah, warehouse, like construction site, or like I had to produce meat, but it's like the
butchery. Butcher.
Yeah, just something very awful.
Yeah,
and I did that for a month. It was like the lowest point, I think, for me as my career. And by doing this horrible work, I just was looking at the clock all the time, and I was thinking, like, what would I do if I was free again? Like, what would I do if I wouldn't work here, if I wasn't thinking about money? Like, I was constantly making movies in my head, like, because that is fun for me. So I was making movies to pass the time. And that was the moment for me. I remember very well because it was such a horrible experience. Like, okay, I want to make movies now and not choose the path of money. Like, it's okay, I'll be an artist and not have like certainty. And that was a scary decision, and that was the whole question for me, like certainty versus just work and earn money. Uncertainty versus work and make your money. That for me, that's the biggest hurdle.
Yeah. Yeah, I was smiling when you were saying that because I was working in a job. I was working for MTV a couple of years ago, and I worked there for 5 years. Well, 4 years and 11 months. I quit before my 5 years. And I remember that after 2 years, I had figured out this job. And I would sit there and I'd click the buttons that I knew what I had to click, and I'd write the emails that I needed to like, God. And I was just staring, and it was probably one of the most like, my lowest points of my life. Like it was where what made me so like sad was that I knew there was something else that I should be doing. Yeah. But I was like, I had been doing the same thing for like so long, and I was in this like path that like was very, very safe. And I was just sitting there, and the longer I worked there, the more like angry and sad I got at myself. And I was doing the same thing. I was like clicking buttons, and I was just like making movies in my head. I was like, I should make a documentary about those people. And I'll be like, all right. And I'd just start like, and then eventually, I was like, all right, now's the time. Like, are you going to keep on making movies in your head, or are you actually going to make movies in real life? So it's a beautiful thing.
And how did that transition go for you?
It took a while, actually. It took a while. I moved from MTV, and then I moved into a different role, making social media content for Heineken and Mentos, and which was a very interesting job in itself. And then my moment, that was, I guess you could say, like the switch. Mm-hmm. It happened 3 years ago now. I think 3 years ago, in the first week of COVID. And my partner, she got a head injury in her first week of COVID. And ever since that was the point from which like I realized like, hey, like you got to do something. Like it's enough like time to like play. Like you need to make something happen now, and you either do it now or you don't. So that was my moment, and I was like, all right, it's time to like step up. It's time to provide for the family, and it's time to like stop listening to like the voices in my head and to like actually do what I knew that I should be doing, which is
it's a little bit of a like grow up, like stop playing around and let's get to work, like. But it's an external factor for you. It didn't came from inside then.
Yeah. I think, I don't know who I was talking about this with, but I think we all have a different, there's a level, for many of us, there's like a level that we need to like drop down to. And until we hit that level, the problem is not serious enough to solve. So I was living in like a middle zone. Like my job was okay. Like it wasn't horrible. It was all right. And it just, for me, it wasn't bad enough, I guess you could say. Yeah. And then I didn't want these things to happen at the time, but then like a whole series of events happened, and then I dropped so far below this line that I was like, all right, let's do something, you know? So I'm thankful for everything that happened along the way that got me below that line, because without it, I don't know how long it would have taken me to like flick the switch and then just like go. So very interesting thing. Hey Dayo, can you tell me about your transition period from being a traditional filmmaker to more like social media content? How's that going?
Yeah, it's really hard. I think there's so, how can I explain? It's I think when you start in the industry of film, it's an industry full of connections, networking, but also it can be toxic. It can be like almost like your best friends can also be your competition. I had that in my studies, and it wasn't a nice experience in that way. And I still feel that in a way of short films, you have to win prizes, like win festivals, and there is a whole system behind it that makes it less about, I don't know, just creating as a creator on a frequent basis. It's who gets the chance is lucky and can make something, because film is such an expensive art. And the point that I want to make is that transitioning from that industry to social media or YouTube or online creation, for me, is quite hard, in the sense that I feel like that industry is looking still, like I feel failed if we talk about filmmaking. Going to YouTube is like, for me it's not failed, but I feel like the world could see me as a failed filmmaker that doesn't find his path in the industry, and maybe the second choice is YouTube maybe. And it isn't that way for me. It doesn't feel that way, but that voice in my head talks to me that way, you know, like that, like people are judging you. And I'm just being very honest. Like that is the only thing that is making it hard at the moment for me is the image of myself as a filmmaker and what I'm just doing. I just create. So yeah, that's the only hard part actually, in my head, and self doubt, and yeah. But yeah, my whole journey, also in my studies as a filmmaker, I had this dance with online creation. Also, I tried it, and I showed my teachers, like, isn't this also art? You know, like, isn't vlogging isn't this also like a new style of storytelling? Like, can we accept this? And there was a lot of pushback on this, and I decided, like, okay, I will make cinema. I agree. I will make cinema only on a big screen. But then after a few years, after just working in the industry, it's like, there is so much value of just finding an audience online also. Like, only cinema is very, like it's a small circle. You can't reach so many people. And I fell in love with like the internet and the possibilities that the internet creates. And I see so much potential, and I know so much about those two worlds combining or something, that it feels very, how can I say, like, I need to prove my point. I need to walk the walk. No, talk. Help me over. I need to
walk the talk the walk.
Walk, yes.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying there, and I think that online and social media it can be a beautiful thing. Like the depth of connections that I've been able to make while meeting people online, and like the people like yourself that I've been able to meet, has been something that, like when you make a film, a traditional film in cinema, you can make connections outside of that circle as well. But like you said, like the amount of people that you can meet, and you can still make deep like connections with other people online. And you can also, making videos wherever, like YouTube and cinema, they are, in my opinion, they're distribution methods. And the art that you're making, whether it's on YouTube or Vimeo, or if it's traditional in cinema, it is all the same thing to me. And I do think that there is some beautiful art on YouTube, and there's some beautiful art that is on cinema. And then there's like beautiful art that like you don't even show anywhere. So I think it's all art to me. And I think that your experience in the traditional world and making short films, I think that's incredibly valuable to like people like myself and to other creators online who have only had like been exposed to like one style. Because like vlogging is, in my opinion, it is art, and it's like a form of like expression. But we can learn something from all different styles of expression. And so to have someone like yourself who is experiencing both worlds coming together, I think that is a very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that for me, the interesting point of going online and creating online is, or why I'm obsessed with it, is really like the future and where this is going. Also, when you look at Web3, the decentralization of everything, I feel the same of the industry of cinema. There are so many gatekeepers, and I become so happy when I realize that there is a shift happening, and Web3 is almost here, or we are building it, and all the platforms are trying to evolve and understand what decentralization means. But in essence, it's just not having any gatekeepers, not having any persons in between you and your audience. And I think that's such a wonderful thing. And I see the potential of that, and I see the beauty of that, to be an artist and have like total freedom, like you publish something, nobody is holding you back. You know, it's not about money. It's not about ethics. It's like your voice, and that's a powerful thing.
It's a powerful thing. Could you talk more about that and how Web3 can benefit other artists online?
Well, yeah, I think how can other artists benefit from Web3? That's an interesting question. Well, you have like everything near you, or for instance, my sister also, like, she's a film director, but on a higher level. Like, she makes TV series and films, but she's still struggling with the same gatekeepers that I also experience. And she's not like the things that she can make if she could have a flow of creativity, a flow of her voice. Like, that is interesting. Like, I want to see that, but she's constantly like held back. And yeah, I just see the potential of like start creating on YouTube or something. Like, think outside the box, like how you normally work. Start a newsletter and share your journey. And I think for other artists, it's the same. There are so many possibilities that now the tendency is decentralization. It's like a wave that you can surf on almost. Like, in that sense, we're really going the right direction. That, like, for instance, the CEO or I don't know his name, but like the public figure of Instagram, the boss of Instagram, he held a TED talk about this, that probably Instagram will not be around for so many years, because all the platforms need to adapt to a decentralized system where artists find their voice and find their audience, and they're free to go wherever they want, and they're not bound to any platform. And he is saying that, like, he knows that Instagram is a platform that maybe will be not around in 10 years. So he knows that the importance is that we as creators have that freedom of like choosing our platform. And if a platform isn't being, I don't know, like puts up rules that you don't agree with, you can just leave. But in that decentralized world, you take your audience with you. And the first, or the form that we already have in that sense is a newsletter, I think. It's like the core basics of, like, a friend of mine just was blocked on Twitter, and he lost his account and he lost his audience, and he was like, I was just on the point of creating my first newsletter, but he doesn't own his audience right now. Like, he doesn't know the people. I don't know if that's an answer to your question, but
yeah. Yeah, that's an answer to my question. And I'm very curious about this. Can you talk about your experience in writing a newsletter, in starting a newsletter? Because it's something that I've been thinking about, but just like your friend, I haven't quite started. And I did read your tweets about writing a newsletter. I'd be curious to hear it from you yourself. So How has your experience been writing a newsletter, Dayo?
Well, I started one while I was in the course of Danko, and he just told, like, he said, like, just start, and then we are going to figure it out, like, but just publish your newsletter already. and in 6 months you will be grateful for the process that you've been through, because then maybe you will know what you want to write about and what your audience is, because in 6 months maybe you will have a bigger audience than right now. And with that in mind, I just started, and I think now 12 weeks later, I've already felt like, okay, I'm not going to do this for every week because it's quite hard, and writing isn't my focus, and I want to have more focus on video for film. But it became a little bit of like my homework I needed to do. But to be honest, it's quite enjoyable. Like, for someone who is dyslexic, I felt so insecure about writing in general. So, and also in movie making, in filmmaking, it's always been a hurdle for me. I always needed other people to help me with writing. And now I just used this opportunity to incorporate the things that I was learning from books and from copywriting lessons and from all the things on Twitter, like just incorporate the things that we are learning, and like it really helps. It teaches me the structure, how I need to come up with a hook, with something interesting, know what my audience wants, and like I want to talk about my life and my experiences, but I need to understand that my audience also wants something. They don't care really about my life, you know. They want to learn something, and I need to give value. The value can be in my experiences that I share, but I make a clear difference in like when is it time to share my story, and when is it time to speak more in general, and that's a great exercise for copywriting and also for filmmaking. Like I'm happy in that way. Like I feel more secure already in my writing as a filmmaker. So yeah, that's the biggest lesson for me. And I crossed already like 200 subs now, so it's quite motivating to see that long form content is also working. Like, whoa, I didn't know that this was a thing. Like, so yeah, I really motivate everybody, as you know. Yeah.
All right. So from what I'm getting from this is that I'm starting a newsletter, Dayo. I think sometimes you just need to listen, and you need to, instead of how can you say this? I used to get caught into the trap of just like learning and trying to figure out everything and every possible like direction of like videos, blog posts, and like going to the library and reading encyclopedia things, because you know. But sometimes you just need to listen and understand that, like, hey, there is something that you should be doing here. So I think.
Well, I think in essence, it's more about you need to act. You need to do. I think that's the essence, because what you just said is so, like, everyone is doing this, like overthinking every step of your process. And I think it's a powerful thing, like Danko told me, but maybe I'm telling you now, like, just start and figure it out along the way. It's like, it's a powerful thing. And over time, you are teaching yourself the lessons, you know? You don't need it from the internet.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. So now that I've decided that I'm starting a newsletter, Dayo, do you have any advice for me on what am I going to come up against mindset-wise, and how can I overcome the? I'm thinking in my head practically, what do I talk about? What is my first steps? Do you have any advice on how to overcome these obstacles?
Yeah, I think first off, like, you will discover your subjects along the way, I think. But you can make it very simple. Like, take for instance one of the most successful newsletters on the internet is from Tim Ferriss, the author of the 4-Hour Workweek. It's 5 Bullet Friday, his newsletter. It's 5 things that he found interesting and that he sees as valuable to share, just like you share things with your friends. I think that's one of the most simple ways to do it, and you can just copy that. You can just start that with that format. But then, for instance, Dan Coe's newsletter, he does a deep dive in a subject, and he uses this writing of almost 1 week as a structure of his so popular YouTube channel. He just writes it. He just reads it down when he's recording. He has like a teleprompter, and he reads. It's also very powerful to see your newsletter as a beginning for a bigger project. I want to do it this way. I also want to use this as research for YouTube videos, but in practice, like in real life, at this moment it's quite hard. Because I'm not there yet. I found, like, yeah. And also I know my audience at this moment. I don't feel like I have an audience right now. So I'm very cautious about their time. Like, I didn't. What is the name? I'm not worthy of your trust yet, of your time, I feel. I think it's normal. I think the viewer, your audience, needs to build trust with you and needs to get you to know you, to be able to read a 10-minute newsletter or open your newsletter and be interested. You need a connection already, and I don't think I'm there yet. So I know that the time of my reader is valuable. So I'm going to post less, so 2 weeks, 2 weeks in between, and just make it more shorter. I think more easy to read. So for you, I would say start with that. Like, start with 5 things you learned this week. And I tried this my last newsletter, and it ended up being 3 things that I found interesting, because I wasn't feeling it that week. But
wow.
If you start, I think some of the points that I would recommend is make it personal, introduce pictures of yourself, of your life, use the things you learn from Twitter and incorporate that into your copywriting. Like, know that numbers get your attention, that listing things get your attention. It's a perfect way to introduce other work of yourself, and I really enjoy this process of seeing, like, I don't know how to call it, but like a trickle down effect of you going from Twitter to my newsletter to my YouTube channel. And that's already a journey that you're quite invested already then. And I love this kind of building your audience in this way. And it's a chance of really being you and really being vulnerable. And I think, and that's something that I'm big on right now, is like vulnerability is what will be so important as creators. Now I'm going maybe to another subject of AI, but in a world where AI is so prominent, I think the answer is vulnerability. I think the answer is honesty, because that's something that AI doesn't have, you know? Like, we as creators have to adapt a little bit, because everyone can write a newsletter. I mean, you can ask ChatGPT and it will write a newsletter. So I think you can only be human if you really show your vulnerable side.
Yeah, I agree. And let's talk on that, because I've been speaking a lot about this as well for quite a while. I've had many, many discussions about the future of content and what's going to happen with ChatGPT coming out. ChatGPT 5 is going to be processing video. So that's going to be a crazy thing, right? Like the fact that short form content and long form content is going to be so accessible by everyone, and their ideas can also, be generated by AI. And the amount of content is only going to keep on getting bigger and more. And I do see that people are, in the most part, sounding the same. When I'm scrolling on social media, people are saying, maybe it's just my audience, but the people that I'm following, but people are saying the same things. Videos are looking the same things.
So I'm curious.
Yeah, it's like style-wise, everyone's using the same captions style, the same colors.
But do you mean that the future of that people around you are mostly in the same opinion on what's going to happen, or?
Yeah, I just think that it's currently people are sounding quite similar, and I think that it's only going to get more as we go along. Like with AI coming in and people just typing in, write me 20 YouTube hooks, and I do think digital authenticity and vulnerability is going to be, it's like I said before, when I saw your content and the videos and the stories that you were telling, vulnerability, it's like a human element to it that AI cannot currently replicate. But that's a whole nother story in itself when AI starts to figure out vulnerability. But I do think that being vulnerable really does, when you be vulnerable, when I saw your first video, right, and you were saying, I always I wanted to start posting online for 5 years, and then I didn't because of the thoughts in my head. I watched that and instantly I was like, we think the same thing, and then I have this instant connection with you, because I'm like, wow, Dayo has these thoughts in my head. I have these thoughts in my head that tell me to stop posting content and stop sharing my ideas because I'm not good enough yet, kind of thing. So I think when you're vulnerable, it really does it's just that I love it, and I think it's a superpower. Is what I'm saying.
It's so interesting, because I remember when I did that, that my dad was like, I don't get it. Why do you do this? Why do you put yourself on the internet in this way of being not sure, being doubting about things, being uncertain, being vulnerable. And he didn't understand, like, why should you share that first, and why should people like watch? And it's and I didn't have any answer to that. Like, it's just something that I think is important to do, because I watch a lot of YouTube. I can't say I grew up with YouTube, but it's my TV, or like it's my. I never watch, like, I never put the TV on, so it's my way of consuming. And I see that there's need for something else. Because it's and to go back to AI, I think there will only be more of what there is already. I think of short, strange, over-saturated and edited very fast videos to capture your attention, because in the model that we are in right now, it's all about keeping your attention and earning money on that. That's for every platform, that's their model, to just, you give your attention and we earn on that. So I hope that there will be a shift also in that sense. That otherwise we will have 10 years of AI created, like, bad TikToks and
yeah, I think it's going to happen. I think that
we have to adapt.
I do think that there's always going to be a place for digital authenticity. I do see it as it's going to be an uphill battle for quite a while. I think this new wave of AI is coming in, and it's the cool new thing. And I think I would love to think that one day in the future, digital authenticity is, what I was listening to Mr. Beast's producer the other day, and he was saying that the people who are making these quick, fast edits on like TikTok, with the flashy things, and the things that currently go viral nowadays, they are not building a relationship, and they're not building connections with other people online. They're just getting views and they're getting numbers, which has benefits in our lives nowadays. But the people who are able to hold a connection and just speak, as humans with other people online, these are the people who are able to build connections and build relationships online that have depth and value.
Yeah, and I think the rise of podcasts, and with Joe Rogan, for instance, that's a good example of that. Actually, people crave for long form, in-depth conversations where things are not pulled out of context, and to understand the full conversation. I believe that AI will just push us the other way, but will eventually make us feel the importance of humanity, like our vulnerability, like we said, and long form videos, and for every wave there is a pushback, it's always I'm lost in words right now between Dutch and English, but
we can do some Dinglish.
Lost in translation.
Yes.
But I'm quite that's in my head, constantly my thing, that I'm always thinking vulnerability is going to be the next thing. We need that now.
I think so.
Also on Twitter, I struggle with that. It's like, I see so many people doing the same thing, and it's copy paste. It's let's motivate each other. Not so many people know this side of Twitter. I think like Twitter, in many of their eyes, is a toxic place of conversation, or I don't know. I've never had Twitter before, like 2 months ago. So I was on that side of like, what the fuck is Twitter? But now, yeah, it's a cool place of community. But again, it's like, people aren't that vulnerable. People aren't showing their face. And you've been a fresh breath of air in that sense. Of showing your face, using your voice, using video, and being vulnerable. And like, if you're talking about building a personal brand, that's the way to do it, and not like hide behind the copy paste tweets. So I salute you on that.
Well, thank you very much, Dayo. I do agree. And I think that we are quite ahead of the curve, I guess you could say, in regards to digital authenticity. Like, I've been reading the analytics for what people are currently searching for, like on YouTube and on Google, and digital authenticity and vulnerability. These topics they're not currently trending, but I completely agree with you. And if I had to project out 5 years time, I think that people already know nowadays, like you and I, we crave this like authentic human connection it is possible to find online, like Dan Coe, for example, and you and I, but it is something it's hard to find, and you need to currently you need to like seek it out. But I do think that as we progress forwards, with content, with social media, whatever happens, whatever platforms we are on, I think there's going to come a time where people start to search out actively a whole lot more just human connections online. Like, isn't like social media is called social media. It's supposed to be social, and we're supposed to, like, it's just another way to meet and interact with people online. So
yeah, I think there will be a bigger difference between media that you want to consume and media that is like thrown in your face. I believe that if we are going a direction that everything is more accessible with streaming platforms like Netflix and all the other stuff, like it's already happening in that sense, that you can now at your home, in your house, like choose to watch quality content. And I hope in a few years, or I am already there. I mean, I'm doing it. I search for quality content on purpose, I hope and I believe that we're going that direction, that there will be a difference in people that want to consume our content, and that there is, I think it's important for artists or creators to notice that is the direction to go. You can go to the very short, flashy TikToks to grab attention and to make money for the company. But that's not something you're going to, now for this Sunday, I'm going to watch a lot of TikToks. Like, it's not something you choose. You open one and you're locked in for a few hours probably. And that's the difference, like the thing that you choose to watch. And for me, that's also Dan Coe and Joe Rogan, and it's long form content that interests me. And 10 years or 20 years ago, that was TV. That was, Still, it is for a lot of people, but it's a beautiful thing that to know that you can choose quality content. Not a lot of people know that on YouTube there is a lot of talent. Many of my friends don't watch YouTube or are not busy with consuming that much. They consume on other platforms, but they don't really know that YouTube is a place of like artists, like some with less than 1,000 followers, like making such beautiful work. Yeah, I don't know. I love the platform and
yeah. And it's it's a pleasure to see you on YouTube, man. I appreciate your point of view. And I think, Dayo, we could speak for hours about digital authenticity. We could keep on going forever. And perhaps I can join you on your podcast one day.
Oh, yeah.
You never know.
That's a good one.
I think that would be a fantastic idea, Dayo. Before we go, could you tell us where can people find you?
So my name is Dayo Klingspoor. It's quite difficult, I think, but I'm on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube, and subscribe to my Substack. My newsletter is on Substack. It's a very nice platform. But yeah, a lot of people mistake my name. Like it's very hard, and that's the reason I just use Dayo for most of the platforms. But I'm not sure yet how I will profile myself as a personal brand.
Yeah, Dayo. It's an interesting name. Where does it? Before we go, where does it come from?
It's an African name. My parents, they were just playing around with, like, my sister is Noah, and they wanted something with O and A. And Dayo was the result of that, but they knew it was an African name. And now on Twitter, I have a lot of people like, "Hey, did you know your name is from Ethiopia?" Like they like everybody DMs me like saying that my name is from their country. It's very strange.
Wow, that is a beautiful thing. And on your podcast, I will explain my name because it's also kind of interesting.
Yeah, but I had to ask you for your how to pronounce your name. That's also indeed. You can explain later.
I'll explain on your podcast, Dayo. But thank you very much for chatting about digital authenticity and vulnerability, man. And I appreciate it.
We touched on some interesting topics.
I think so too, man. It was a very interesting conversation, and I look forward to our next one on your podcast.
Yes. All right.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks, man.
Bye.